Hi, my name is Ashley Williams, and this is my textual analysis project looking at COVID-19 and crisis communication. So, a brief summary of this is basically looking at crisis communication in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic that is happening right now. Every company needs to have a crisis communication plan, whether it be on a small scale or for something larger like the pandemic. If you look at the situational crisis communication theory, this looks at how companies handle crisis. This can be looking back at previous crises they have had before, or looking at other companies' crisis and how they have handled it. We will look at this through an ideological analysis, which is essentially looking at the beliefs and values of something or someone. This is going to go in perspective with what values companies place on employees and consumer health and on the scale that they think the pandemic is happening. So how can the public and employees interpret how these companies react? This can go in a handful of ways. It can show that the companies care about their employees if they take serious precautions. It can show if they take the virus seriously based on the sanitary precautions that they put in place. It can show that they want to protect their consumers if they follow the rules. If a company decides to close down their operations for a while, that will show that they do want to protect their consumers. Lastly, it will show that the health of their consumers and employees is more important than the revenue that they will be missing out on. Next, we're going to look at some recent findings from studies done based on COVID-19 and revenue. So you'll see in this grid that in the first box, it shows 29% of sales has decreased. While part of this is from people being afraid to go out and shop, a large part of it is from people feeling as if companies are not taking enough precaution and then they don't want to go to the stores. Another one, if you look at the fourth box, it shows that 16% of staff shortages is due to illness related to the coronavirus. Many employees are getting this from their workplace. Even if their workplace is taking a lot of precautions, the consumers coming in are not taking enough care and causing the workers to get sick. On the other hand, while we see some companies like these that are not taking all the precautions that they could, we do see a lot of major companies with a great crisis communication plan in effect that are doing what they need to keep consumers healthy. One example is Carowinds, which is owned by Cedar Fair. Cedar Fair shut down all of their parks immediately whenever the coronavirus outbreak started. They still have not opened up their parks, but are doing as much as they can to make sure that everything is cleaned properly and that their consumers stay safe. So we will look at the implications of these effects on businesses. So while many people feel that it may just temporarily put the businesses in a bind, consumers see it as much more than that. First, consumers will quit shopping at certain stores if they feel as if they didn't take enough precautions. While many businesses think this might just be temporary, that is going to have a lasting effect on how the consumer thinks of them and will most likely cause a decrease in revenue. On the other hand, people are starting to go in more small local grocery stores that they know are doing what they can to keep the consumers safe, which will then begin seeing more revenue based on how they are handling the pandemic. Next, you'll have employee turnover due to companies putting employees' lives at risk. Employees need to feel that they are needed and cared for and that they are in a safe environment where their employer cares about keeping them healthy. Many people are starting to see turnover rates in their businesses because they feel as if they do not care if they get sick and that their boss expects them to be there regardless of their health. Next, you can potentially lose business due to not having an effective crisis communication plan. This goes in hand with not doing enough for your company and for the consumer's health and safety. If you don't have an effective crisis communication plan and you're not able to carefully watch your steps whenever you are your reaction to the pandemic, then you will not be able to be as successful as you want to be with it. Now, looking at ideologies and behaviors, this goes hand in hand because how the decision makers in companies react to this pandemic shows their ideologies and their beliefs on it. So these ideologies is essentially how these people feel and their beliefs and values they put on something. People want to feel, like we said earlier, like their health and safety is important to the companies. This is the company's opportunity to show their behaviors and ideologies on how they feel about the pandemic by going out of their way to take extra steps for their consumers. The consumers will then in turn feel as if they are cared for and start shopping in these places more. Consumers typically do not want to invest their money in a company that does not care about them. Lastly, overall, looking at why is this important? This affects our business and economy and the revenue that we are seeing with it. It affects our public health, not just about the actual health of the public, but of how they are interacting in the public as well. And it affects how companies will handle similar situations in the future. COVID-19 pandemic and crisis communication theories will be a learning experience for companies to come in decades afterwards to see how they have reacted. Lastly, I have included citations that provide all information that is in this PowerPoint coming from the World Health Organization, the Journal of Sustainable Tourism, Journal of Business Communication, and then general information on the pandemic. Thank you.